Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. Good to see all of you guys here on this Tuesday afternoon. Today is Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, and we are live. Welcome back to every single one of you joining me. The Jaybefaunt channel is also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there for the JB show every single Sunday, as well as the RBN Roundtable. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps me out to be able to reach more people, to be able to help activate, inspire, and encourage. So thank you very much for that. Also, if you guys like to, you guys can also join my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. And as well as if you guys have any questions you would like to get a response from, a video response, then you guys can do that through QBounty. Or if you guys have a video you want me to react to on video, you guys can do that through QBounty at qbounty.com/jaybefaunt. So good to see all of you guys here today. This is going to be quite an interesting show. I do have a guest today that's going to add some levity to the conversation, and I really cannot wait to get to it. But let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. First, we're going to look at the thumbnail, and then we'll be getting into our first discussion. So later in the show today, we're going to be talking about the foreclosure crisis that is happening in Florida. And so is this really indicative of what's happening across the nation? Is this something deeper? We're going to be getting into that a little bit later in the show. We're also going to be talking about no more bar. Florida kicks out the ABA. We're going to be getting out. We're going to be getting ahead of this because this is an interesting story. And I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to this story, so I really want to get into that part a little bit later. But first, we're going to be discussing what's going on in Minneapolis and in greater Minnesota in what I call this ICE crisis. And we'll be speaking with Native American revolutionary activist Joey Peltier today to talk about what's going on and what he sees on the ground, especially in places like Minneapolis, Minnesota, and throughout the rest of the state, because that has been deeply in the news today. So we're going to be starting off with this. We've seen this before, and we'll be getting into that with Joey Peltier joining me right here. Joey, welcome back to the channel.
I mean, bonjour, me for having you back, James. It's been, a couple months since I've been back, and in the past couple months, the resistance is flaring up in Minnesota, and we are pushing back, as everyone has seen. Right, we've seen this before. I want to echo back to like my ancestors, the members, and we need to come together around these times of injustices and push back against state violence. We're seeing that in Minnesota, and I'm excited to see what the future brings us.
Yeah. So there has been some arrests that have been made by ICE. Arrest sounds kind of sanitized. I'm sorry. There's been some detaining, some kidnapping by ICE. And I want to share this because I think that it's very appropriate, especially in regards to what is going on. There was another Native American activist that actually is talking about Native Americans that are being kidnapped by ICE. I want to get into this, and then if you need me to pause, if you want to respond to something, please feel free. But I want to share this as well, and then I want to get your thoughts about what's going on the ground.
So these are 5 Oglala Sioux tribal council members, and they have 4. There was 4 tribal members who were picked up by ICE in a community called Little Earth, right here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And one of them has been released, but they couldn't locate the other 3. So the council members here, they're all elected officials of the Oglala Sioux tribe. And they gained access to the facility, and they couldn't find their 3 tribal members. They're not. They claim that they're not classifying them by their nationality, which tribal members are also citizens of the United States since 1924. There's nobody more American than American Indians. But they were unable to find them here today. And so they're going to continue on. They got some contact information. They love the fact that you're here, that everybody's here, and they're going to be giving out tribal IDs to their tribal members who are in Minneapolis, St. Paul, at the American Indian Center down on Franklin Avenue. But I just want to say thank you to everyone that's here. Stay vigilant and stay assertive, stay constructive. We're in unprecedented time, the way that I see it. So,
just your initial thoughts, especially in regards to people who are of Native American descent that are being detained by ICE.
Well, it's illegal detainment. Like you said, it is kidnapping. The ICE does not have any authority over U.S. citizens, and we are dual citizens, but we are citizens of the United States. That's a simple fact. It was passed. Oh shoot! Correct me if I'm wrong. It was like a 1934 or around there that we were adopted. It was the Dawes Act, if I remember right. So it is an illegal detainment, and what they're doing in Minnesota is illegal. It's not just what's happening to the Native Americans, it's to all the United States citizens. As for the three individuals that are being detained, am I coming through all right?
Yeah, you're coming through okay. It's a little bit laggy, but we're powering through.
Okay. As for the three Oglala Sioux men that are illegally being detained, as far as I know, they haven't been released yet. The facility that they're being detained at is Fort Snelling. And a little significance on that Fort Snelling is that following the Dakota War of 1862, the U.S. government executed 38 men, two additionally later on. This is what we call the Dakota 38+2. We see the riots happen every year. This execution was the largest mass execution in the United States history. It was done by the hands of President Abraham Lincoln. Fort Snelling was created to host Indigenous families, children's, and where the actual execution happened in Mankato for the Dakota 38+2. So having Indigenous folks being held illegally in this facility is just echoing back to the history that we've fought through the settler colonial empire that has taken over Turtle Island.
Yeah, I want to share this as well because you were referring to this. So this is the law that was passed in 1924, the Indian Citizenship Act. So this is, it says the Snyder Act, also known as the Indian Citizenship Act, was passed on June 2nd, 1924. And it says prior to that time, Native Americans have been explicitly denied citizenship, first in the United States Constitution and later through the 14th Amendment. It says, however, while the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 ensured that all Native Americans born within the United States had citizenship, the act failed to fulfill the promise of citizenship because Native Americans were not also granted voting rights. And so it just shows how even though this land has been occupied by your people for thousands of years, to be honest, you still are treated as other, as someone who is not of this land, even though you are. If you can give us kind of just a humanizing of how this feels to be looked at as a stranger on your own ancestral land.
I don't see it being looked at as a stranger. I see it as a colonial land grab again. You know, this is, like I said, this is echoing what has happened to us in the past. It surprises me none that ICE or Trump's illegal domestic army is going after Indigenous folks. This is what rise of fascism looks like. This is what the course of this colony has taken. And we've done this before. We've seen numerous other presidents have gone down the fascist route.
Yeah.
And who do they target? It is our Black and our Indigenous brown communities that get targeted
Yeah, yeah. I think back to as recently as the Standing Rock, right? The Standing Rock protests, where President Obama actually was forcefully trying to allow, you know, fossil fuel companies to endanger the water in that area, and indigenous water protectors were trying to protect the area. You also have people like Abraham Lincoln, because a lot of times people whitewash Abraham Lincoln and said, "Oh my God, he freed the slaves," but he murdered Native Americans. People talk, don't talk about people like President McKinley and what he did, Monroe, as well as Andrew Jackson, which is considered to be one of the most notorious against Native Americans as well. So, really, to be honest with you, this feels as American as apple pie, if that apple pie is laced with cyanide. And so, what we see going on in this country is really just a repeat of the same old thing that has been happening even before this country had colonies.
Well, JB, I don't know if you know this, but Trump, Obama, Biden, they've all targeted the western border states and, oh, excuse me, the southern border states.
Mhm.
And along that line are tribal nations. We've had indigenous folks been arrested by ICE several times. We have had ICE harass entire communities of indigenous folks because their reservation is right on that border.
Wow.
Not to dismiss what the current actions are happening to the Oglala Sioux and the Anishinaabe in this area, because I'm not trying to do that, but I'm trying to say that these actions by ICE, by this illegal army on domestic soil, is doing to our people, has been going on not or before Donald Trump hit office. This battle over our land has been going on before Donald Trump hit office. Yet we do see an acceleration,
Mhm.
and we do feel that. Certainly, we feel the attacks that we've been fighting as tribal nations. We've been fighting this current administration left and right, asserting our treaty rights, and part of the 1924 bill, we didn't actually get our ability to vote until about 3 decades past that. Like my sister reminds me always that, women got the right to vote, but it took a couple of decades before indigenous women got the right to vote.
Wow. Let me ask you this. This is just on your opinion between yourself and the rest of the Native Americans that you speak to on a regular basis. Are a lot of you saying that finally a lot of you got pointing to those of us who are not within the community, is the sentiment that is that finally you guys are actually seeing what we're going through? We've been going through this the entire time. It's just you guys didn't start to notice until we had a Republican president. Because a lot of times
Mm.
people weren't really looking when Biden was president, when Obama was president, when Clinton was president, or even Carter. So is that kind of this that sentiment that you feel?
We still know that the Democratic leadership is not looking. It's
Hmm.
themselves. We see that they're not looking. We see that the Democratic leadership refuses to bulk on abolish ICE, and see how Governor Walz is calling in the National Guard. Well, anyone who was here during George Floyd's murder understands the National Guard is not here to protect us. It's there to protect the cops, and in this case, ICE. We see that Mayor Fry and the St. Paul mayor refusing to hold ICE accountable. And both are Democrat DFL mayors.
Hmm.
Democrats are not with us. We acknowledge that, but what we are seeing is that the communities, labor class communities, are coming to their morals and saying no. And we've seen this before, James. Obama, when Obama was doing, the deporter in chief originally was deporting the Central and Southern American children back, that the evangelical right on their morals to join the rest of us to push Obama into making those DACA dreamers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even so, Obama didn't go all the way, and he used those DACA dreamers, and subsequently Biden has used those DACA dreamers as political tools because they gave them no pathway to citizenship, leaving them as vulnerable as a lot of the other folks that come from elsewhere. And as Indigenous folks, even when the first colonizers came over, we opened our arms and our families and welcomed folks here. And we still do that to this day. And that's why you see, it wasn't the call because of our 3 Iguala tribal residents, tribal citizens that got arrested, got Indigenous orgs active and engaged in this resistance. It's because we honestly understand if we allow the government to do unto others, they will do it onto us. And that's why prior to these 3 getting illegally detained, we were out there as the Indigenous Protectors Movement out of Minneapolis, as AIM out of Minneapolis. We've been organizing as Indian Collective out of it's Sioux Falls, South Dakota, who has been engaging in our community, getting us trained and educated in how to build those mutual aid networks and how to build those information networks on Indigenous country has been at the front of this ICE resistance. And you see that directly within Seattle, you see that directly within LA, and you see that back here in home, where in Minneapolis, where the Indigenous communities, the Indigenous nations, and the Indigenous nonprofits have been working hand in hand with all the communities around us. And we're leading this push into not just to settle down this administration, but leading this push into something that will transform this system. And I hear the call. We've seen the posts online and the rally to be had on Friday, that they're calling for a general strike of sorts within Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Duluth area. And you know me, James, for a long time putting a general strike. I am personally hesitant because it's a one-day strike. And to me, I'm watching the unions tiptoe around the wording of strike, and I can understand because they're tied into different legislation and into their contracts. But I see that this is just the start. You know, I came into your show, and I'm sorry to put, you know, a positive demeanor on such a tragic incident within the colony, but to me, it's calling and it's telling me that we are in that time of change. And what I call it, we are in that era of general strikes.
Yeah.
To me, it's not calling a general strike. It's me watching that action happen, watching that mass, watching that economic pause, and having those negotiations happen. The one day is not going to bring us to negotiations. I don't think so, James. But I see what it will do. It will mobilize our communities into doing a longer strike, a month-long strike.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to sit in one of those trainers training with Indian Collective, and we had a conversation around 3.5. The scholars say that we need 3.5 of the population to make change in this country. And to me, New York population plus Chicago population together, that's 3.5. Or that's Chicago and Minneapolis populations together. And I envision duos of cities going to for a month, working together, negotiating with the feds together, and then also negotiating with their local, state, and city governance bodies to push through legislation and policies that we want. That, once they get, a step forward, they come out a strike, and then another two cities pop off. And to me, that's how we avoid what we're inevitably going down. And this is that civil war that we're going down. And the civil war of the 21st century is not going to look like our original American Civil War, the South versus the North. It's going to look more like what we see with coups across the globe, where authoritarian dictator takes over and puts the state against the people. And that's what we have right now. It's this authoritarian ruler who is not abiding by federal law and by constitutional law, taking over and using his own personal political army to harass and target blue states and blue cities, or also known as sanctuary states or sanctuary cities. And that's where the biggest demographic of his political opposition is at.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I would like to return back to what he's saying here, because I think there's more information that I want to get into as well.
Oh, and that's Chase Ironeyes right there. He's the executive director of Lakota Law Office. Pretty good guy. I've worked with him throughout the years. I remember his first governor campaign for North Dakota back in 2016. That was the Bernie Sanders era.
Oh wow.
And I would actually go directly to the interviews that were done with the chiefs and the people, because Chase is coming in from out of the area. And if you see some good coverage over it, I would totally suggest going over to the Indigenous Protectors Movement. And we have on the ground, boot ground coverage. And then I believe they also live streamed the press conference at the Oklahoma Chiefs. 3 days ago, if I remember right. But Chase is a great guy. Like I said, I've worked with him in the past. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that background information. All right. Perfect. Let's continue on.
That President Trump's favorite president, he has the painting on the wall, is Andrew Jackson.
That's the father of the Indian Removal Act. The fact that we're here at Fort Snelling, this is a concentration camp, a prison for Dakota people. Abraham Lincoln ordered the largest mass execution in American history. 38 plus 2 Dakota people were hung here, right here. And so it's not lost on us at all. In fact, it seems like a deliberate jab at the soul of our people, but we also have relatives. They don't understand that we are America. How could you possibly target
James?
Yes.
Dakota 38 plus 2. That was what year was that? That was 1824. No. What year was that? Well, okay, so the mass execution in Mankato of the 38-2 happened, and that following spring were the treaty negotiations between my tribe along with the Red Lake tribe, the United States government. So when we entered into treaty negotiations and contract with the United States government, we had this huge mass public execution looming over us, telling us that either sign this or we're going to do something along the lines with you all.
So,
and this was some. Oh, go on.
Well, I was going to share actually the screen of exactly what you're talking about in regards to what Abraham Lincoln did. This is just the AI overview. It says Abraham Lincoln's relationship with the Native Americans was complex and contradictory. He says most notably during the 1862 Dakota War, where he approved the largest mass execution in U.S. history, but also commuted most of the sentences. So my thing is like and from what I'm hearing from actual Native Americans, because a lot of times the history gets whitewashed, was that it was
Mhm.
really a push to convert them to Christianity, and they resisted.
Well, the war actually started, if you bring it back to Lower Sioux tribe, where the original reservation and the original settlement was out in Minnesota. They tell the story that it came from two brothers that were being specifically targeted by a local shop owner. And that shop owner himself had been extorting the local families, the indigenous families, putting them under credit, and some of them never even being under credit, but saying that they were, and then the white settler government taking their land, their possessions, and booting them back into the community. So this came from that original shopkeeper, and he ended up, the family went to the settler government and protested and said, "Hey, he's ripping us off." Um, they ended up killing one of, I believe, the brother's mother, the two boys' mother, the shopkeeper and his faction, and so the brothers, the community, contacted the settler government to address the situation. They gave it a year, maybe, if I remember right, about 2 years to get, to get some justice. Nothing happened, so the brothers took it in their own hands, and I don't want to say necessarily raided that store, but they went to take him out, and from the records, it shows that no, they didn't raid the store. They just specifically went after justice. The colonizers took that as an act of war by the Dakotas and started the Dakota War. I could be wrong in my recollection, but I was told part of this story when I was out in Lower Sioux about a year and a half ago. We were out there because we were getting together with the Dakota nations over a pipeline that we're battling.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you very much for that. And my thing is just like a lot of these facts that they say, sometimes they'll put a grain of truth into it, and then they'll also try to cover it over by whitewashing and saying, well, Abraham Lincoln was a good guy, but he had some conflicting. And it's like, come on, baby. It's not conflicting. Like, it's just like when they talk about, oh my God, but he freed the slaves. And I was like, but he didn't want to. In fact, Abraham Lincoln was recorded in saying that if he could keep slavery while keeping the Union together, he wouldn't even free the slaves. So he's not the champion that everybody thinks he is. Just like FDR is not the champion that people think he is. And so I'm sick and tired of, and we're about to enter into Black History Month in a few days. I'm tired of whitewashing these particular presidents. And really, I mean, if you can say this about basically all of them, is that there are a bunch of, maniacal human trafficking degenerates. I mean, that's basically what the presidents of the United States have always been. And people who will say, but this president, but that president, none of them, because they kept the system in place. From Washington all the way to Obama, and I'm also including the presidents of the United Confederate States of America. I mean, so it's the same thing with all of them.
There hasn't ever been a good president, and that's why the land needs to go back to governance with the indigenous nations.
Yeah.
Or rather, that's why the governance needs to be back in the hands of the indigenous nations from here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also something I want to share with you as well, because this was and I want people to be very careful, especially what's going on. There's two things that I want to share. So if you have the Ring doorbell, you might want to reconsider. Let me share this. So this is actually came out last year. It says Amazon's Ring to partner with Flock, a network of AI cameras used by ICE, feds, and police. says Amazon surveillance camera maker Ring announced partnership on Thursday with Flock, a maker of AI-powered surveillance cameras that share footage with law enforcement. Now agencies that use Flock can request the Ring doorbell users share footage to help with evidence collection and investigative work. Flock cameras work by scanning the license plates of other identifying information about cars they see. Flock's government and police customers can also make natural language searches of their video footage and find people who match specific descriptions. However, AI-powered technology used by law enforcement has proven to exacerbate racial biases. So, it says Ring has had a poor track record with keeping customers' videos safe and secure. In 2023, the FTC ordered the company to pay $5.8 million over claims that employees and contractors had unrestricted access to customers' video for years. So this is why, like, even though you're trying to keep your home secure, even then they're taking advantage of things like that. And so,
and then you're told if you're a criminal, then you're told if you're not a criminal, you don't have to worry. But to me, in 2026, it seems to me like the church committee never did it never did a thing. And for folks that don't know what the church committee was, it was a congressional committee to dismantle the McCarthyite era laws that put queers, liberals, leftists, socialists, communists, all on government watch lists alongside of their political opponents. Has this ever changed? The mass surveillance is something that we talk about continuously in movements and how our cell phones are being traced. There's an article that was released a week ago where the State Department has access to your signal chats, your encrypted signal chats. There was cases brought forward in New York, if I remember right, around 3 or 4 immigration/climate activist signal chats that were going on and indicating that those individuals are linked to a T group. I know that James just got his monetization back, so I don't want to ruin that for him. But that's something that we are seeing in the nonprofit era. There was conversations on how the Georgia cop city organizations fought their RICO charges, in which we're actually seeing that wasn't the full case, and that they are still being tried on RICO charges. They are targeting our infrastructures to resist. People don't understand, and don't get me wrong, I also hate the nonprofit industrial complex, but I am also a part of the nonprofit industrial complex as the co-executive director of MUCWA. These nonprofits are the organizations, the means of funding our trainings, our community actions, getting our representation within these court cases, and making sure that we have a resistance. In this current administration and previous administrations, they say it's by the rule of law, but to even access the rule of law, you need to be able to afford a lawyer. And without these nonprofits, we don't have this infrastructure in place. We don't have the funds because the billionaires have already extracted the majority of this generation's generational wealth prior to these people being born. So it's saying that mass surveillance is an issue, and I certainly agree that it is. What we have to think about while we're addressing this mass surveillance is how do we stop the censorship also against us? Because we see buddy in pairs on legislation around AI restrictions, the same as you get internet censorship tied up to it. We here in Minnesota, we've had numerous conversations around AI. I'm actually part of coalitions in Minnesota and nationally that are addressing legislation and policy on data centers. And we've had to have conversations on whether if this bill is a bad bill because you're filling it full of censorship clauses that are going to just ultimately kill our means to have a public debate, have a conversation. And I'm sorry to bring that all the way to another topic from just surveillance, but you think about it, this mass level of surveillance teams up with these data centers and teams up with the AI being developed currently. The largest uh, buyer of our AI is our police officers. It is our ICE. It is used to be this mass surveillance tool. My own town of Bemidji passed with duress against myself and a lot of other community members putting these type of flock cameras within our own town. And we addressed the city council saying, hey, you're not only going to be targeting people in our area, you're targeting the whole entire um, northern Minnesota, people that drive on this road just back and forth to work. And what is it for? So you can spend more money having their technicians go through that data. It to me, it in itself is a wealth extraction measure. Because to have that flock camera, you're paying not to buy it, you're paying to lease the technology, you're paying to lease the equipment, and then you're paying for the techs to go through that stuff before it even goes to the police officers or the ICE agents themselves, which they have to hire on another team to decipher what this company is telling them. So that's where the AI boom is coming from. And it's a fake inflated market for surveillance, for mass surveillance.
Absolutely. And in fact, your timing is perfect because I do want to share this as well. Because an article recently came out that really everybody should be paying attention to. And I'm going to share this as well. But this is an article from journalist Ken Klippenstein. It says exclusive secret ICE programs revealed, says leaked documents detail the dizzying scope of ICE operations. So he came out with this a few days ago. So it says Operation Benchwarmer, Operation Benchwarmer, Tidal Wave, Abracadabra, Dust Off, Fleur de Lis, are just a few of the secret programs recently undertaken by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE has become a self-appointed bouncer for America under Donald Trump, enlisting tens of thousands of federal, state, and local police and intelligence departments and agencies, not just to root out illegals, but also exploit them for intelligence. He says Border Patrol officer outraged by ICE's conduct has leaked to me this and other documents providing an unprecedented glimpse into ICE undeclared activities across the country. So it talks about a 15-page long document marked law enforcement sensitive, details 21 different major ICE operations resulting in 6,852 apprehensions since June. It says from Operation Abracadabra, a covert effort to develop informants among immigration and detention. Operation Benchwarmer, which alone spans the deployment of 2,000 intelligence assets across the country. The document gives a sense of how aggressively ICE is scouring neighborhoods and developing sources to spy on immigrants and Americans alike. So this is more than just trying to get the quote unquote illegals. This is really to just get as much information on Americans while violating our Fourth Amendment rights. And they're doing it through the guise of trying to get illegal immigrants out of the country.
It's a modern day COINTELPRO.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what it reads. It's a modern day COINTELPRO, and their goal is to collect as much information from their political opponents to use against them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the original issue was with the McCarthy era legislation and policies, which is why we had to have the church committee. This nation has never let go of its mass surveillance. This is exactly what the slave catchers did to our slaves. They infiltrated those communities to have each other narc each other out. That's exactly what they've done to our communities. We call them Indian agents here in Indian country, where you had families that were specifically identified that would work with the state to hand out goods and resources that were treaty rights, but they would ration it to families that would speak out. They would restrict it.
Yeah.
These tactics, don't white people come up with anything new? Like, for real, James, do they have no inspiration, no creative touch in their body that they have to just reuse failed tactics over and over again?
That's a question. And the motivation behind it is what many people would expect. And I want to share the motivations behind this as well here. Ken Klippenstein, he brings out this. It says the media is telling a certain story about ICE, giving the blow by blow on the most public horrors, but never quite seeing the bigger picture that it is part of a larger war. As a military intelligence source told me, the ICE crackdown isn't just about immigration. It's about gathering intelligence in support of Trump's war on cartels, as well as on Antifa, aka anti-fascists, on the radical left, and those who are quote unquote anti-American, and anyone else they consider terrorists. And since the administration has been so quick to label everyone, including Renee Good, who was murdered by an ICE agent a few days ago, terrorist, is no wonder they think they are at war. And so this is not just ICE. It says ICE's work is done under a set of task forces with an agency called upon other Department of Homeland Security agencies like Border Patrol, Homeland Security Investigations, Federal Protective Service, and even the Secret Service. DHS now constitutes the largest federal law enforcement agency in the country, larger than even the FBI. And that was before ICE had its law enforcement budget nearly tripled last year. And that tripling of the budget is bipartisan, by the way. It's not just Republicans, it's Democrats as well. And so this is why I think a lot of us have to be very careful, especially about what ICE is doing, because it's not just about trying to get these undocumented immigrants out of the country. It's really an excuse to spy on Americans. And this is something that I think we really need to talk about.
If they want that much in my business, I want to know why they failed the Pentagon's audit 9 times in a row, 10 times in a row. I want to know where the Epstein files are, unredacted.
Yeah.
If they want to know all that about my personal life, they need to start having some transparency on their side. And that's what we're not having from any of the administrations from before. Mm-hmm. And you're right. We can't move forward until we address the situation that we have right now. Mm-hmm. And that is this mass surveillance that is coming at us as those T-word and that are targeting and shutting down nonprofits under that same guise. Mm-hmm. You know, we're lucky to see the release of Leonard earlier last year. A half measure that it may be, but him being a victim of COINTELPRO and having that infiltration within Native Nation, we understand that we had family members that were left dead without their teeth, without their hands. Yeah. This is the same brutality that we saw back in the 60s, back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We see where this will take us. You know, it's going to lead to people like you and I, James, that are with same-sex partners being on those lists, being targets.
Yeah.
And we see that, we see the people rising up. And that's why I'm not scared. I'm scared for the people we'll lose. Mm-hmm. But I understand that we have to do something. If we do nothing, that's not harm reduction.
Mhm.
And we need to put this community, the United States, into a course that won't impede or blow up our own communities,
Yeah.
and allows liberty, allows growth. And the conversation, I brought up the conversation around the general strike in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We're not going to vote our way out of this. ICE, they're not even talking about abolish ICE within the National Democrats. You
No.
can't get none of them to speak about it. Where's
No.
Ro Khanna right now?
Where's AOC? Because AOC ran on abolishing ICE in her platform.
Well, I knew where AOC was when she approved for more oil pipelines, where she originally started at Standing Rock. So did Ilhan Omar, who started at Standing Rock, Cori Bush, and a few others who 10 years ago this year were out at Standing Rock helping out.
Mhm.
Where are they? We are at the 10-year mark for Standing Rock, and nothing's changed. We've gone further down into the collapse.
Mhm.
And since 10 years ago, all we see is our communities getting angrier and getting organized.
Mhm.
And I can't wait until the midterms.
Mhm.
Can you? We're going to have a wave. It's not going to be a blue wave. It's going to be a red wave again. But that's the final nail on the coffin of the Democrats. Do you think after 2026 that they'd ever get elected again nationally? I'd hope not.
Mm.
I'm not here to talk politics so much, but I think we need something different,
Yeah.
because we've been going on the same train of supporting these folks.
Yeah.
And what have they been doing? They built this surveillance state. Out of my lifetime, there's been more Democrats in office federally than there's been Republicans.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you want to repeat the 60s, the 40s, the early 1900s, the 1800s, that's where we're going. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Thomas Frank talked about this in Listen Liberal and The People Know. The crux of his books were that we are in a codependent relationship with a liberal faction of the
Mhm.
corporate faction.
Yeah.
And The People Know was about that corporate faction, that liberal corporate faction, coming in and breaking us up and silencing us.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's recently came out that Gen Z is now the least supportive of both parties. Many of them are actually rejecting both political parties. And so it's just interesting to see how they are waking up as we speak. And so my thing is I think we need to advance from, because there's layers to this, right? There's rejecting both political parties, but then there needs to be a rejection of the system overall, because I think that's in that direction, and I think that's what scares the corporate parasites so much, is that if we start to reject the system overall, that means that their ivory towers are really built on toothpicks, and all it takes is just one little blow and then it all falls down.
And that's where the censorship and surveillance is coming in. It's because there's, what, 3,000 global billionaires, maybe almost 4,000, and we know that. My mom, when she was growing up, there was never such thing as an accounting of rich people outside of like entertainment magazines. And the newer generations, you know, I'm a millennial, but I'm an older millennial. We've had that ability to research and look up and have information at our fingertips. And that's what has motivated the younger generations. It's not that they're getting mad, it's they're getting learned. They're seeking the knowledge of why we're in this shithole. Why are we here? And that's the path that I went on myself. My mom used to, when we were growing up, used to watch the news every day while she was getting ready for work. She worked overnights, so we'd watch the 6 p.m. news, and I'd ask questions upon questions upon questions. But you have a newer generation that are asking those questions, and they don't have to rely on their mother saying, or their father, or their parents, or their teacher saying some I don't know answer. They can easily say, go Google that, go search it, and we have that information at our fingertips. When we're talking about like the surveillance, they're surveilling us because we know what's going on. They're not hiding it necessarily. A lot of this stuff is out in the open. I was giggling previously when you were reading that article, because the one of the admins for ICE here in Minnesota was in that picture, and we were watching him on TikTok the other day, my sister and I, and him walking in this huge gray trench coat. And all Gina and I could think about was, man, you look like an SS Nazi officer. And they're not trying to hide it. They're not trying to hide that this ICE isn't Donald Trump's private military service. And they're not trying to hide that they are censoring us. The whole TikTok ban, when they said it was because of China, but we all know that it was centered around the struggle and the resistance in Palestine. But with us knowing and us coming together and us fighting back, that's what Minneapolis is. That's what they've been doing. They've been coming together and informing each other. Indigenous organizations came in to help educate and organize and inform on how to do different tactics.
Yeah.
And they consider us terrorists. They consider us that T word because we're offering educational and training.
Yeah.
And this is not new. We saw this specific piece of policy in legislation in Minnesota 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. And we see it within the federal policies that are trying to get passed through Congress. Every 2 years, you have these type of legislation going out to identify and target individuals. And the information that they need is what they've been building with these AI surveillance tech. Myself, they want to know where I'm traveling. They want to know if I'm going to the cities. I had a trip planned. Friday, we had a Rise and Repair legislative kickoff event. And my sister and I knew that, we're going to get watched. We're going to get surveilled. There's a huge possibility we could drive into Minneapolis, St. Paul, get pulled over just because they've been watching our signal chat. They know that we've been attached to organizing in this area around the resistance. And to me, where's my liberty? Where's my freedom from not having an overbearing government, like controlling every step I am taking? And then why do I have to be so concerned for my safety against the United States government? Why? Aren't they supposed to serve us?
That's a great question. And for anybody that is standing behind this, if you have that "Don't Tread on Me" flag, you need to throw it away because you don't mean anything by it. You know, you'll stand there in your camo, gear, and then brandish, all your guns while you're hunting in the woods. But then you say that you're forming a militia just in case the government becomes tyrannical. And yet you look at what happened to the Native Americans and Black Americans in this country, and you see them being tyrannical towards us, but you somehow don't think anything's wrong with that. But then once you see them being tyrannical, even to white people, y'all still don't do anything? Cowards. Absolute cowards. They shot a white woman in the face and nothing was done. And a lot of us Black and Native Americans have been saying, if they do it to us, they'll do it to you. They shot Sonia Massey in the face. Where was the marches? Where was the people in the streets for that? It was only a few months ago. Sonia Massey was shot in the face. Now Renee Good gets shot in the face. And guess what? How many people are really in the streets now for Renee Good? And that was a white woman. So ultimately, the people who say, oh, we need to guard against tyranny, they are posers. They're posers with a gun hobby. That's it. And they don't even need bullets. All they need is some polish, because that's all it's there for. It's there just for show.
And don't come talk to me about small governments and local control after this one. Absolutely. Because when you are coming after my governor, when you're coming after a city mayor and the attorney general, because they're trying to find justice for Renee Good. I mean, home rule should have been the theme. We should have jurisdiction over this case. Mm-hmm. And the federal impeding the investigations on the attorney general's case here in Minnesota, that's political intimidation.
Yeah.
That's obstruction.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that this administration could give two jack craps about the rule of law.
Yeah.
It was never if Renee was a law-abiding citizen or not. Mm-hmm. It's they have us so polarized. And James, you're right. You brought it up that it was the majority of the newer generations. Say it's the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans don't vote because we know that the system is rigged. We know it's controlled. We've been disenfranchised.
Yeah.
And what do you have? You have a quarter of the population voting for either side, if that. But no, Renee, they're calling her the T word. They're using her sexual preference against her. They've been calling her son's school, harassing the school. What does the kid have to do with this?
Isn't he 6 years old?
Yeah, like between 6 and 8. He lost his father like 2 or 3 years ago, and now his mother was brutally murdered by the country that's supposed to be his country. Man, but you have these hateful people across the country and here in Minnesota that are doing anything to protect this administration's illegal actions. Doing anything to say that this administration's immoral actions are God's will. Oh, I've come across, those chit chat groups on Facebook are just terrible for these kinds of conversations. And you see it. They use the B word. Don't tell me that you care about white women if you are talking that Renee Good deserved to have what happened to her. That's disgusting. Yeah. In our interview that we had on your other show, You know, I brought up the fact that white supremacy harms more white people than any other demographic in this country. And Renee Good is the key point on that conversation right there.
Yeah.
And look how many people are bending over backwards to justify her murder.
Yeah.
How many white men are bending over backwards, blasphemizing their spirituality, and even their own political stances to justify her murder.
Yeah. Yeah. White women are a tool for a narrative for them to use in order to justify the brutalization of anybody who is not of them. That was what was done, especially to Black Americans, particularly Black American men, to justify coming after us because they said, oh my God, they're going to come after our white women. And then they brutalized us for it. I think it was it Emmett Till that was accused of whistling at a white woman, and they brutalized him to death. And so ultimately, that's what it has to do with. And here you have, it's crazy because there's that story about the white woman that was murdered by a Black immigrant on public transit, and then they flipped out about that. But then a white man kills a white woman, and then now they're making excuses. So it's never actually about white women. It was always about who the perpetrator was. And also,
it was a Haitian man.
Some people are going to get mad at me for this, but it is what it is. I'm going to put it out there because it's the truth. Everybody wants to talk about the crimes that illegals are doing, but yet they don't really highlight all the crimes that American citizens are doing on a day-to-day basis, which trumps the amount of what undocumented immigrants do. You tell me all these crimes that are being done by American citizens, and you only want to cover what the illegals are doing, when in reality, it's like, okay, if you want to cover what undocumented immigrants are doing as far as crime, okay, but have that same energy for American citizens who are also doing the same things, if not worse. Have that same energy. Be consistent. Because if you're not going to be consistent, I don't want to hear a damn thing from you. And that's the crazy part for me. It's like, oh my God. It's just like the whole thing with people talking about, oh my God, they're LGBTQ, so they're grooming kids. Meanwhile, you have a rapper that decides to have his son sleep with a hooker. And that's not grooming? That's not abuse? Like, come on now. If you're going to be consistent, then please be consistent. If not, shut the hell up. Because I'm sick and tired of people always hand-wringing about, oh, well, this particular group, that particular group. Look, the only group that we need to focus on is the parasite class at the top that is honestly keeping us in this position. They've been keeping us in this position for 500 years. 500 years. It started with your people, they continue with my people, and now they're shafting other people. And this is one of the things I try to push, as far as like, we need real justice and not this fake behind justice that they're pushing our way, trying to say, oh, we're trying to make America great. No, you're trying to make rich Americans greater. That's what it is.
And being consistent. Let's be real. The majority of people that commit white-collar crimes in the United States and in Minnesota are white males. So when we're coming here into Minnesota because of all the Somali fraud, let's be real. The majority of people who do fraud in America are white males. And don't get me wrong, I am a nonprofit executive director. Fraud scares the crap out of me. I make sure our books are on point, and we're doing what we need to do to account for every penny that's being spent within my organization so we don't get smelt at. But let's be real. The majority of people who do fraud in America and in Minnesota are white males. Again, it's not Somalians. It's not, but you see that, ICE and customs are grabbing money from Somalians that are trying to flee the area. That's their paychecks. ICE pulled in, I think it was like $1,400 last week from two Somali immigrants that were leaving the area. That's a week's worth of money. That's not the $14 million that are being funneled into whatever fraud case you're calling. That skinny white man who came around Minnesota doing all those videos, Nick hateful, whatever your name is.
Nick Shirley.
Nick Shirley.
Mhm.
You go through all of those cases that he brings up, the majority of them are debunked. There are several online Minnesota content creators that have ran the records, have gone through the public knowledge, and have made the simple phone call asking, do you take walk-ins? Do you have room for more folks? Whatnot. They're here just trying to spread a hateful narrative so they could justify and manufacture the consent to use ICE against American citizens.
You hit the nail right on the head. Thank you very much for that. You know, so one of the things that I also wanted to discuss was you have one of the things I think that's absolutely necessary is that you are also pushing for a know your rights course within your area so that people who may encounter ICE, because there's a lot more footage that I can show. And of course, we know there are Black people, Black Americans that are being attacked by ICE. There was just a story that was done that was talking about how this Black family they were trying to just get home. I think their son had a game or something like that, and the car got flashbang, and then they threw tear gas, and the baby, who was only 6 months old, stopped breathing. Had to be. I'm sorry. How many?
4 children were in that car.
Children. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, yeah, they're Black American. They are citizens, and yet they're being hit. They're being, caught, swept up in this too. And then I also talked um, about the gentleman that was shot by an ICE agent in California, an off-duty ICE agent. So, like, this is happening to people who ICE is technically not supposed to be going after at all, and yet we're getting swept up in it too. And so people need to know their rights, whether they are citizens or whether they are immigrants, both.
Agreed. It wasn't just the 3 Ogallala that were taking under illegal detention. We've had numerous Indigenous folks within this area that have been taken in detention by ICE. The 3 that were brought to prominence is because the Oglala Nation came to Minnesota. They're based currently in North Dakota, or excuse me, South Dakota. But let's be real, the majority of Minnesota is Dakota land. So they came back to their homeland to address the 3 that were taken, and then give their current citizens in that area new tribal IDs, because tribal IDs are federally accepted forms of ID. My tribal chairman, Jamie Azure, also came to Minneapolis over this past week to ensure that our tribal citizens have tribal IDs, but this has been going on for a while. Pretty much all of last year, we've had folks whispered a water protector pulled in about 2 weeks ago that we had to mobilize the city or the community to get her out. Yeah, this is inhumane, and they are targeting Black and brown, any individual of color. And I might be a little bit pasty today because I've been out in the winter, or not out in the winter sun enough, but people my color, my skin color, have been being picked up for years, and it's been heightened under the last 6 months. to be specific, why we're having it here in Bemidji, ICE is moving into the more rural areas. Not saying that they're moving out of the metro areas in Minnesota, but they have been spreading it out. Trump keeps on sending thousands on top of thousands of his private army to Minnesota to harass us and scare us. So we do have here in Bemidji, I'm surrounded by 3 indigenous tribal nations: Leech Lake, Red Lake, and White Earth. We are a border town, so we already have had our community on watch. We're doing the organizing. We're trying to get a Know Your Rights, a constitutional observer, and a security culture training here in Bemidji on Friday at the Native American Development Center here in Bemidji. It'd be 3:30 to 6. I know we're trying to cram in a lot during that time period, but still working with the vendor to give us just a little more time. He doesn't want to stay there late on a Friday night, but he's doing as much as he can. So we're having that training, but there's been families that have been pulled out of Park Rapids, and then I had just got hit up about an hour ago saying that there were ICE folks on their way over to Bemidji itself. So we're specializing on having those 3 trainings on Friday at the Native American Development Center here in Bemidji. These trainings have been held, like I've been saying throughout this whole entire interview, that in the cities, we've been having webinars around it. It's primarily being led by the Indian Collective out of South Dakota. And if you need one in your local community that you fear that ICE might be coming, reach out to Indian Collective. Their Know Their Rights campaign under their website right there. I'm so happy to get to work with these individuals out at Indian Collective, and just to highlight what's going on with Indian Collective themselves. The executive director, Nick Tilson, you all might remember the video that came out about 3-4 years. About 3-4 years ago. No, excuse me, out of Trump's first term, I think it was 2018 that this happened, where Nick and the indigenous man cussing out the police for being in their parking lot. This is tribal land. If you remember that video that went viral. Well, he also led excuse me, let me rephrase, because I'm not 100% on what was going on. So what I understand to be the situation, allegedly he led the rally and protest at Mount Rushmore, the 3 dead guys on the mountain, that's still our sacred mountain. It's originally Dakota sacred land. It's a ceremony place. But when Trump came out there to visit, Nick, Indian Collective, led allegedly the protest out there, and this administration is going after him with federal charges. I think with a possibility of like 20 to 37 years in federal prison. So this is a political trial to arrest another indigenous water protector and indigenous organizer, Nick Tilson. His court case, I believe, is on January 28th. Folks, check it out for reals, because we're looking at a similar situation as such as Leonard Peltier, my uncle. So check out Nick Tilson's trial, Indian Collective. It's a bunch of political nonsense where Trump is just trying to rally his base against the indigenous communities across Turtle Island.
All right. Thank you so very much for that. And can you let people know what's coming up next and where they can find you and your work?
Okay, so like I said, we have that that training on Friday, but we also have I sit in a bunch of meetings every day, so bear with me. The 18th and the 19th, no, excuse me, the 17th and the 18th of February, we're having 2 legislative rallies at the Minnesota Capitol. The 17th will be our Rise and Repair rally at the Capitol where we are championing protections for our wild rice, along with a bunch of other amazing environmental and mama key protections. The 18th is our No Data Center in Minnesota rally at the Capitol. The coalitions of the cities in Minnesota. We have 17 proposed projects in Minnesota. The handful of cities that have citizen-led groups are hosting this rally on the 18th at the Capitol. Both myself and my sister will be speaking at either one of them, both of them, whatever happens, happens. We are carrying 2 moratorium bills against data centers. And then we have about 2 handfuls of good neighbor policies that will help make it hard for data centers to come into Minnesota, and then ensure that if they do come into Minnesota, we have the best possible whatevers, like best possible distance away from communities, best possible water use, and so forth. Is there any way there's best possible water use for data centers? I don't know. Anyways, come check us out there. You can check out a lot of my programming work at mukwaminkana.org, where I'm the executive director of. We are a grassroots micro grant funded organization. We haven't made it huge with the big money. I work most of my time volunteer. I've done some cool stuff. You're looking at us last year out in DC at the People's March, the day before, 2 days before Trump was inaugurated. The day that Trump was inaugurated, we marched with the Martin Luther King rally and went to the AME Church in DC. But we do a lot of cool different work. We're mostly based out of Minnesota and Michigan, but we also cover Wisconsin, Illinois, and occasionally North Carolina. And then for myself, you can check out the links that this video is tagged under, which is my Twitter account. That's my personal Twitter account. Everything that's being put out of there, including my personal Facebook account, which I'm more active at. Everything being put out of there does not reflect the organization itself, and it's not an endorsement, but is my own personal feelings, thoughts, and opinions. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Am I doing anything else soon? I think that's it, James. Unless you have me back on, or if someone else pulls me on to do an interview. I am open for anyone else who does interviews to book me. Tuesday's the best for Joe, to be real. I don't have many standing meetings on Tuesdays. So, miigwech for having me here, James.
Yeah, thank you so very much for coming on. Joey Peltier, everybody, please make sure to follow him on all the socials and also contribute to the organization Mukwa. So thank you.
Chi miigwech, gigawagamen minwa.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, thank you so very much to Joey Peltier for joining me for that. Go ahead, please, and give a like to the stream. This helps me out to be able to reach more people so that we may be able to grow our understanding together within this particular time that we are in. It is crazy, crazy times that we are in, especially in regards to what the citizens of this country are going through, what the people of the global South especially are going through. And so, you know, having solidarity with them and being able to do you know, liberation for ourselves and stand with others as they fight for their liberation, that's very important. So we'll be getting into helping more people out as well. So there's going to be a couple more heavy segments that we're going to be getting into, but later in the show today, we're going to end with something funny that I want to share with you guys, because I'm not going to leave you guys walking away sad. We're going to walk away with a smile on our face. So be prepared to stay tuned to the end of the show. So with that being said, first, what we're going to do is we're actually going to give a shout out to the patrons on Patreon, and then we'll get to the comments in the chat. So let's get into this. Let's go and say thank you so much to the patrons. So let's get into this. Wait, where'd it go? Where you at? Hang on. Okay. Is it up? There we go. There we go. All right. Thank you so very much to all the patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I don't have a thing. Like Whitney said, I have nothing. 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 All right. So thank you very much to Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And thank you so very much to all new members. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. You guys make this possible and keep the lights on. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you like to, you guys can also contribute through PayPal as well. Thank you so very much. And also, I have memberships now if you guys would like to be a monthly membership, if you guys like to do that instead. So thank you very much for that. Let's get into the comments and the chats, and then we shall move on. Let me check to see on the Kick side to see if we have any gifted subs there on Kick. And then we shall move on to the Rumble to see if we have any Rumble rants. We're good on the Kick side, so I'm happy about that. Thank you very much to everybody there. Now let's go on to the Rumble side. See if we have any Rumble rants. We are good on the Rumble rants. I'm sorry, we're good on the Rumble side. Thank you very much there. Now let's get into this here. All right. Let's go. So we have starting off. We have Edward saying, "What's up, JB? Good to see Edward." Edward continues, says, "I was reading where an Asian man was grabbed out of his home and dragged in the snow by ICE. And he is a U.S. citizen. He was returned with no apology." Yeah, they don't believe in apologies because they don't feel like they did anything wrong, even though they did a whole lot wrong. Song Weaver says, "Trump pushing for civil war so he can go God mode." Well, that is a fool's errand because it's going to hurt a lot of people. We have Crazy Cat coming in saying, "Thank you for being you, JB." Oh, thank you so much. Thank you as well for being you. We have Miss Holly coming in saying, "Hi, JB. Hi, Joey. Good to see you." Holly coming in. We got Sean coming in saying, "Good afternoon, JB. Was thinking of visiting Destination Restaurant." Oh, yeah, Destination Smokehouse. But after finding out what you discovered capitalism-wise, I now have two thoughts. Yeah, the whole Destination Smokehouse. So if anybody hasn't been on TikTok, there's this older gentleman. Everybody calls him Unc, but he came up with the word tendernism. I want to make sure I get it right. Tendernism. And basically he would, take like the beef rib and then the meat will fall off, or he would get like the brisket and it will fall to pieces because it's so tender and it's delicious, barbecue. And this guy basically made this place, Destination Smokehouse, like super famous because he went viral. And even I think Jordan the Stallion was one of the people who actually did a video with him. And if you guys don't know Jordan Stallion, he's the one who he did a lot of different recipes. He'll always do, the videos in the mirror, but he'll be like, "Come closer." And he'll also show off like different things cooking wise. And then he'll throw his glasses, right? Well, he came there. And then lately, Keith Lee, who is also a big influencer, actually visited, tried to give, Unc a $4,000 tip while he was at Destination Smokehouse, and the owner and some of the staff blocked it. And they basically were like, "Well, how is he going to give that to that man when all of us work here?" And the thing is, it's like, y'all wouldn't have the business as high as it is if it wasn't for him. And so people wanted to see him. And so it's a whole lot of mess. But ultimately, it's really just, and then the owner trademarked the word tendernism, right? and the owner is a white dude, and nobody saw him before any of this. And so now he trademarked the word, and now Unk is gone. Nobody knows where he's at. And now all the videos are with the owner and other people, and they're trying to make money off of it. And now business is in a steep decline because of what he did. So it's giving gentrification. It's giving what's the word that I want to use? It's giving appropriation. That's what it's giving. So yeah. All right, we have Adam says, Mini Wakoni says, water is life, but ice is death. Woo. Those are bars, man. Those are bars. Game.film is in here. Good to see you. Absolutely stellar to see you. On the Rumble side, we have Jimmy Apples coming in saying, yo, we have all one same, says, National Guard don't protect. Remember Jackson State and Kent State. Yeah, that was murdering unarmed people ain't new in the United States of America. Roger Meadow says, thanks for covering what Northrop Grumman did to my neighboring town out here in Long Island. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's important that people know exactly what these military contractors are doing to us. Human Rights for All says, thank James Fauntleroy for this blessing. Peace be upon you. Thank you very much, and peace be upon you, and cheesecake be upon you as well. Jacqueline coming in saying, hey, JB, hey, everyone. Got 2 streams to go on the go today at the same time. Yikes. Woo. I mean, if you need to, you can watch mine a little bit later. Or if you want to ditch theirs and come watch mine, you can watch theirs later. Hey, it's your choice. Look, there's always time. Thank you very much from this. Adam says, from the 1970s, goon squads at Wounded Knee to today's ICE. Thank you very much for this, Chris. He said, don't take this the wrong way, but I think we need a stream directed at FBA only. FBA does not understand and maybe refuses to understand the gravity of this ICE problem. Here's the thing. For the FBA is supposed to be a category of Americans that are descendants of slaves. So essentially, it's just another way of saying freedmen. But that was, it's not actually an organization. It was just a designation, or it's semantics really started by Tariq Nasheed. It really doesn't have, it's not really an organization. So some people slap the name on themselves. I just use the word freedman, or I just say Black American. Unfortunately, there are some Black Americans that will look at this and say, it's not our issue. It's not our problem. They're not coming after us. Even though a Black American man was just murdered on December 31st by ICE. And so even though a Black family with kids was also caught in the crossfire of being attacked by ICE, for them, it's not an issue. Unfortunately, more of Black Americans will probably end up being hurt because of this. And then will they pay attention? Some will, some won't. And here's the issue. For some people, and it doesn't matter who they are, you can scream the facts until the cows come home, and some people still won't listen until it directly affects them. And we've seen that time and time again. You can talk about liberation. You can talk about stuff that happened. Like, for instance, you can talk about healthcare, right? A lot of people are against universal healthcare until they get sick, right? A lot of white people are against racism until it's a loved one of theirs that ends up being somebody of another race and they get discriminated against. how many grandparents of Black children encounter their grandkid being discriminated against, and then they're shocked, like, oh my God, I can't believe this, you know? Or how many men will be like, oh my God, I didn't realize men were actually doing this, like when they finally have daughters, right? Or hell, it sucks, man. So unfortunately, some will get the gravity of the situation, and by get the gravity, I mean they realize how it's connected to them as well, but some don't. And I feel like we'll just keep telling the truth. People like me will just keep telling the truth, and maybe some will catch on, maybe some won't, but they'll know where to find me. And like I said before, delineation and alienation are two different things. It's okay to delineate, but alienation, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. So, all right. Thank you very much for that, though. Lady Alex says most Dems voted to fund ICE. Yes. Marlo says, "What? We about to make it cringe AF to vote blue or red for real. The kids need a candidate like Louis." Oh my gosh! Then they'll pack the booths. Oh my god! Can you imagine Luigi Mangione running for office? And he ran as an independent. Oh my goodness, that would be interesting. Hemp Car on the Rumble side, Trump wants to be the next Alexander the Great. Yeah, it is crazy. And then this is also a really good question. It says, how many ICE officers have Nazi tattoos? Probably a few. And then Violin says, Renee Good deserve a court hearing, not a coffin. Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to, if you want to just take her to court, for doing something wrong, okay, fine, fight it in court, but she shouldn't have lost her life over it. It's crazy, man. And I say the same thing. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. I just covered him last week. I'm blanking on his name. I feel really bad about that. Keith Porter Jr. I think that he should have just got a court hearing, and I think he should still be alive today too. But unfortunately, the way our country works, they don't value human life like that. And that's the sad part. Roger says, to whomever asks, why don't FBA go and fight ICE? My question is, we have always come out. Why are we FBA expected to come out? Yet y'all not asking Asians or Indians for India to come out. Stop putting it on us. That is a tough conversation. Unfortunately, like I covered in the Ken Klippenstein article, it's going to affect us nonetheless. And so just staying home isn't really going to do anything. And here's my biggest issue. I'm not trying to go on a rant, but my thing is it's like, okay, you want to focus on just freedmen, just Black Americans. Okay. But why in the world would you uphold a system that put our ancestors in chains in the first place? Why aren't we actually organizing on the ground to actually build dual power and completely change the system? Why are we so stuck on trying to just basically be the next version of white people in this system? It's like, okay, we got our reparations and we got all the illegals out. Now can we be equal to white people? It doesn't make sense to me. Because the thing is, it's like, okay, you guys want liberation while still under the exploitation of capitalism. That's my issue. It's like, yes, yes, we continue to fight for our own liberation, absolutely. But at the same time, if you're going to fight for our liberation, we got to recognize what the actual deep problem is and not try to put a band-aid over the gaping wound. What is reparations owed? Absolutely. Should we keep fighting for it? You're damn right we should keep fighting for it. But we also should fight for a system that gets rid of what made us a disenfranchised group in the first place. Not tweak it. No, we should get rid of it. And that's one of my biggest things, is that a lot of Black Americans who claim to be FBA don't want to change the system. They want to keep the system in place as it is while saying that we don't need nobody else. And it's like, yeah, of course, you guys want to keep the system in place because you just want to be, you want to have that equality without actually changing the system that put us under in the first place. And to me, it's just wrong. Because we have to, one, get the repair that we need, that is due to us, but also change the system. Like, why in the hell am I going to wash my clothes without taking a shower? It doesn't make sense. We got to do both. Because it doesn't make sense to take a shower and put on dirty clothes. It doesn't make sense to clean my clothes and then not take a shower. So I need to do both. So I think both needs to be done. And the problem is you have one side that wants to do one and not the other. And another side that wants to do the other one and not the other. And that's the problem I have, is that we need to, one, fight for reparations and Black liberation among Black Americans and get rid of the capitalist system, because it is the reason why we are in this spot to begin with in the first place. And so this is one of the things I'm sick and tired of. I'm sick and tired of race reductionists and class reductionists either being on completely on one side or either being on completely on another, when in reality, it both matters. The problem is you got people who say, oh, well, all we got to do is focus on race and then everything else will follow. And then you got some people who are some on the left who do have some racist proclivities that will go, oh, all we got to do is focus on class, just class only. And then they got some racist ass, homophobic ass, transphobic ass type of mindset. And then guess what? We don't get nowhere. And now we have this country that is literally trying to go to war with the world. And then we're sitting here wondering, twiddling on our thumbs going, oh man, the US left, we can't get nowhere, because you guys refuse to actually take and intersect the actual problems that actually put us here in the first place. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so frustrated. Because it's not just class only, it is not just identity only, because we live in a very unique part of the world where we don't have a homogeneous society, and we're also plagued by class war. So guess what? You're going to have to intersect them. And some people don't want to hear that, but it is what it is. And that's my problem, is that people want to be either on one side or on the other, including on the left. Wake the hell up, y'all. I'm sorry, but this is one of the things that is, it chaps my behind. Because certain people will sit here and go, oh, we just got to focus on Black liberation while still keeping the capitalist system in place? What the hell did Nat Turner fight for? What the hell did the Black Panthers fight for? Y'all want to keep the system in place while focusing on Black liberation? All right, well, clean your clothes, but don't take a shower. And then you got the ones who go, oh, well, all we got to do is focus on class. We don't need to focus on race. All right, well, take a shower, but don't put on no clean clothes. Or take a shower, but don't put clean clothes on. Or wash your clothes and don't take a shower, but you're still going to stink. And the thing is like, we have to do both. And so that's one of the biggest issues I have, is that so many people will sit there and hand-wring about one side or another, when in reality, it's like, no, we need to come together on both. And the problem is that everybody wants to be right. They focus on who's right instead of what's right. Do we deserve reparations? And should we have liberation? Absolutely. But are we going to get it through a capitalist system? No. We should have a twofold politic. reparations and revolution, not reparations or revolution. No, it should be both. It should be a both and, not a or. Get that or out of your head. And this is one of the things I think that absolutely necessary for us to really move forward. Some of us, we got it, right? We know. But some people just haven't gotten there yet. And I try to have the grace for people to be able to get there. And I try to keep on explaining it. But it's frustrating, you know? Because the problem is we're brainwashed into being against one another and have a us versus them mentality. That's a part of the American ethos. But yeah, I think we'll get there. It's just going to take some growing to do. And sometimes growth is not comfortable. All right, let's go into the next segment here, and then we shall move on. All right. So, of course, we discussed the ICE crisis that's going on right now with Joey Peltier. We thank you very much for that. But we're going to be getting into no more bar, because this subject right here, I saw this and I'm kind of conflicted. And people go, wait, JB, you're conflicted over something that Ron DeSantis did? And yeah, I am a little bit conflicted. And so I want to share this. Let me make sure I have this correct and ready. Okay. So I want to get into this story because it is absolutely necessary to get into. Let's get into this right now with what could go wrong. Law. It is an absolutely necessary subject and profession that is integral to the operation of our country. Lawyers, aka attorneys, are absolutely vital when it comes to how our country operates, whether it's legislatively, judicially, or things that are passed, or executive orders that are passed down through the executive branch. We have to know what is legal, what is illegal, and in arguing when it comes to certain case law in order to determine how certain things should be admissible or things that should not be allowed. And at this point, this is kind of in the ethos here in Florida. There's a case right now that is really rocking the state of Florida about getting rid of the American Bar Association. And so this is something that I wanted to get into. Now, before I get into that story, the question is, what is the bar like, and why do we have a bar in the first place? And part of it starts off with race. Yeah, I know, right? But I covered this, a year and a half, 2 years ago? And so we'll get into this. Let's get into this right here. So I made this video and says Washington no longer requires bar exam with racist history. Let's get into this.
Some solutions to them.
Venturing into adulthood, Matthew decided to attend law school not only to gain knowledge, but to gain a deeper understanding of why the very field he was entering was meant to oppress Black people. Everything changed when Perry finally joined law school in 1951.
if you had graduated from a law school in South Carolina, you didn't have to take the state bar examination. You were admitted under what became popularly known as the diploma privilege. Now, when the law school at South Carolina State was created, the officials decided, well, look, we've got to do something about this diploma privilege, and so they persuaded the legislature to enact a law requiring the passing of the bar examination by all law school graduates.
Perry goes on to say that he jokes with law students and tells them to blame him for having to take the bar exam.
So let's get into this too, because a lot of so it's funny hearing myself, but there's a reason why we have to take the bar exam in the first place. Why? Because they really want to gatekeep Black people from becoming attorneys within the country. And so, but at the same time, the reason for the bar is very interesting. So they're talking about the accreditation, right? When it comes to some law schools within Florida. So it says Florida Supreme Court ends 3 decades reliance on the American Bar Association, handing win to DeSantis. So let's get into this. It says, in a massive win for Governor Ron DeSantis, the Florida Supreme Court Thursday ended its reliance on the organization in charge of accrediting schools. This ends Florida's more than 3-decade dependence on American Bar Association, the state's sole accrediting body, because the ABA does not serve Floridians' quote-unquote best interest. 5 of 6 justices agreed Florida will reach out to alternative accreditors effective on October 1st. Says this comes just 1 day after DeSantis bashed the ABA as a left-wing organization underserving being the arbiter of legal education, and months after Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier accused the organization of discriminating against Roman Catholics. Because the court is persuaded that it is not in Florida's best interest for the ABA to be the sole gatekeeper deciding which law school graduates are eligible to sit on the state's general bar examination, and become licensed attorneys in Florida. It says although the graduates of the ABA accredited schools will continue to qualify to sit on the state's general bar examination, so would graduates of law schools accredited by any subsequently recognized programmatic accreditor. So it says higher education in Florida has become a political battleground under DeSantis, who vowed to root out and abolish any and all quote-unquote woke policies within the state's institutions. He led the nation in overhauling university structures, flipping the progressive New College into a Hillsdale of the South, while installing GOP leaders as heads of multiple state colleges and universities. Says DeSantis' efforts inspired a nationwide conservative movement. Earlier this week, Texas became the first state in the nation to end its reliance on the ABA, the national agency that serves a primary accreditor for multiple states. So, and he talked about how it's a very partisan organization, and you have the right to be that, but you should not be the arbiter of legal education. So, what does this mean? Because some people may not know exactly what it means to have bar certification, bar accreditation. And so I want to get into that as well. What does it mean when it comes to our lawyers coming from an accredited or unaccredited law school? So let's get into this. So let me share this. It says accredited versus unaccredited. Unaccredited. Versus ABA accredited law schools. What's the difference? So we're just going to go over this here. and I'm going to give my thoughts. It says the legal profession sets a high standards for its practitioners. Lawyers and attorneys must pass bar exams, adhere to standards of professional conduct, and build trust with their clients. Under challenging circumstances, aspiring legal professionals first encounter the question of standards when selecting law schools. The American Bar Association has been the gold standard for law school accreditation since 1952. A majority of American law schools are accredited by the ABA, but there are unaccredited options for law students. It's worth considering whether an ABA accredited law school or a non-ABA accredited law school is best for career prospects. So it says, gives back basically the history of it. So it says the ABA's 2022-2023 standards of approval for law schools set state bar passage as the initial outcome of legal education. ABA accredited law schools also aim to prepare students for effective, ethical, and responsible participation as members of the legal profession. These goals are demonstrated through graduate knowledge of procedural and substantive law, legal analysis, reasoning and research, proper professional and ethical responsibilities to clients and the legal system. Accredited law schools follow ABA curriculum requirements in building the next generation of legal professionals. These requirements include at least one course of professional responsibility and at least 2 writing experiences. There is also a requirement for a 6-credit experiential learning course satisfied by student participation in law clinics, simulations, and field placements. ABA's accreditation process also covers areas including faculty and admissions. Accrediting law schools are required to have full-time faculty teach substantial portions of coursework instead of adjuncts or teaching assistants. Admission requirements for an ABA accredited law program include a valid and reasonable admission test, such as the Law School Administration Test or the LSAT, a bachelor's degree from an accredited university, a process for minimizing student loan defaults through debt counseling and resources. So it says Section 316 of the ABA standards creates a clear metric for success in legal education. ABA accredited law programs must show the passage of state bar exams by at least 75% of each year's graduates within 2 years of education. This minimum standard means the schools are held accountable for student access to the profession. So the passage of state bar exams by at least 75% of each year's graduates within 2 years of graduation. So there's a pretty high bar, right? You have to make sure that they achieve that. So the pros of non-ABA accredited schools. Here's the pros and cons. Says applicants to non-ABA accredited law schools find lower barriers for entry to the legal profession. These programs emphasize the LSAT scores and offer flexibility in admission requirements. These are also less competitive admission process that ABA accredited law schools. Many applicants opt for accredited programs. Says unaccredited law schools often follow 4-year timelines for part-time students, allowing working professionals to earn their degrees. A majority of unaccredited schools use online-only formats to attract students from across the country. Low operational costs translate into lower tuition rates for cost-conscious students. Now here's the cons. Short-term benefits for attending unaccredited law schools are outweighed by the realities of legal profession. The National Conference of Bar Examiners found that 23 states and territories require completion of ABA accredited law degrees for bar exam eligibility. Graduates from non-ABA accredited law schools limit where they can practice law from the start. The lower cost of unaccredited schools may help with tuition, but hurt when it comes to maximizing educational experiences. ABA accredited law schools can afford high quality faculty members and facilities. Limited resources also mean clinics, simulation labs, and other experiential learning options are unavailable at unaccredited programs. So here's the thing, right? and this is what it feels like. While having to pass the bar, and this is why I'm conflicted, while having to pass the bar really dealt with racism and anti-blackness, having a more uniform, universal system where you have to meet these particular standards across the nation in order to be able to practice law, it feels like there should be a set standard, a minimum standard for you to be able to practice law. To say that, yes, I can practice law. The problem is that now you're trying to go through different accreditations, and if you're not ABA certified, right, then if you get your certification from a different accreditation, are they going to be as rigorous as the ABA? Or would they be more rigorous than the ABA? I don't know. It feels like, for instance, if you need to get a surgery done, would you be comfortable getting one that's a surgeon that's non-board certified or one that's board certified? Now, the question is, which board are they certified by? And the question is like, is this going to lead to certain types of lawyers that will shift the law in service to corporations even more, right? Is this just a federalist program on crack? You know what I mean? Because the Federalist is basically a right-wing think tank that is focused on pushing judges that are right-wing and particularly pro-corporate, right? And the problem is that, especially the pro-corporate part, if the entire profession of practicing law is gatekept by people who are pro-corporate, then no matter what route we take in order to get justice, it's going to have the undercurrent of it being pro-corporate or against the rights of anybody who may not be on the right wing. And to me, it should be neutral ground, but unfortunately it's not. And I say neutral ground as far as somebody who has more of a right-wing politic or a left-wing politic, but also I think it's dangerous because if they lean more towards corporations, then that's also going to be dangerous, because what if a corporation does something and you need to sue? Then is your defense attorney going to undermine you when it comes to, or are they going to minimize, your settlement when it comes to, or what you think you should get as far as justice? Are they going to, like, let's say you're fighting a wrongful death lawsuit, right? And then they kind of shortchange you on what you possibly could get for a summary judgment in regards to what you're due according to the law. Or what if you are a plaintiff and the prosecutor shortchanges the people because they have more of a soft spot towards corporations? And so this whole thing about talking about, they're all so woke, and it's like, to me, it's like, it feels like a code word for the people who are the most disenfranchised have too much leeway in the legal system. When in reality, we really don't. We don't. Corporations have a lot of leeway. We don't. And yet they want more leeway. They want more ease within the court system than they already have. And that's what it feels like. And it feels like DeSantis is pushing into that direction. And so we already know that really the judicial system is not really on our side either. Look at the judges. Look at the justices. Like the justices, no matter if they are Democrat leaning, Republican leaning, liberal leaning, conservative leaning, they all are corporate leaning. They are corporate influenced, no matter if they're liberal or conservative. They will side with corporate. You can have somebody who's liberal, but if they are, if they cut their teeth practicing corporate law, it just feels like they're doing this really to make it into a even more corporate friendly type of legal system. And it's like, it's already deeply corporate friendly anyway. But he's trying to get the lawyers in law school when it comes to accreditation. Does that sound weird to you? And my thing is, it's like this system is geared towards the parasite class anyway, no matter what. And then on top of that, like, what if we have to sue the city, the county, the state, the federal government? Like, what if we have to sue them and we need to get a lawyer? And what if that lawyer is accredited by a different accreditation and he was trained in law to favor the state above the people? And yeah, they're defending you, but they're not that fervent in defending you. You know what I mean? Or if you are wronged by someone and you're being defended by the state, let's say a prosecutor, but that prosecutor is not really going to defend you as much. I don't know, man. It just feels like when I came across this story, I was like, wait a minute. Getting rid of the American Bar Association accreditation. But at the same time, I'm also sitting here going, well, having to pass the bar, had to deal with, gatekeeping against Black American attorneys and lawyers. So this is why I'm kind of like in the middle. I'm just like, I don't know. I'd really like to talk to a lawyer about this, or somebody that went to law school, because it feels like it feels almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, because it just feels it feels weird to me. So I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Do you think that this is a good thing, positive thing, or I should have did a poll, but do you guys think this is a good thing, a positive thing, or a negative? Or could it be a net positive or a net negative? Because I'm kind of in between, because I'm thinking about the anti-Blackness, right? That institutions like the American Bar Association could have, or if they have certain standards that are higher standards, then of course it could be that it's just better overall for the most part for all of us. Let me continue here. Now, also, and by the way, when it comes to accreditation, unaccredited schools, non-ABA accredited schools, from what it sounds like, a lot of them are also more for-profit, which makes me also weary because for-profit colleges and universities that are not like state schools or Ivy League makes me feel like it's almost like they're just focused solely on profit. Like, of course, all colleges are, but it feels like they are almost like just trying to churn graduates out instead of actually teaching. So let's get here. I'm going to go here. It says ABA accredited law schools are almost all nonprofit and possess strong foundations in their communities. A recent trend of for-profit law school closures show the shaky ground on which unaccredited law schools are founded. Cleveland State University online JD combines flexibility of virtual learning with a rigorous curriculum expected of a long-time building university. But, you know, that's fine. And I'm trying to look at this from kind of a neutral standpoint. And most states require that somebody they attend an accredited ABA accredited school in order for you to be able to be licensed to represent people within a particular state. So, like it says here, graduates of non-ABA accredited law schools limit where they can practice law from the start. So it says the lower cost of an unaccredited law school may help with tuition. But hurt when it comes to maximizing educational experiences. So are you going to be able to get somebody that's as good if they come from an unaccredited school? But if they do come from an accredited school, but it's not ABA accredited, is it going to be better or worse? Or is it going to be virtually the same? That remains to be seen. So that's why, I'm kind of on the fence about this. And that's one of my questions is like, what could go wrong? Is it going to be more of a breakdown of the justice system? Or is it going to maintain the justice system as is? Or will it be somewhat of improvement? My question also would be, would it have an unintended consequence of actually being better for marginalized groups, which is something that I think Ron DeSantis is trying to avoid? You know what I mean? I don't know, man. That's one of the things I'm thinking about, because people who are more limited in income, who can't afford necessarily to go to a accredited school, and if they class-wise are, they're not very affluent, and their politics lean more towards being for the working class, and if they don't have to go through ABA to get certified to practice law in Florida, could it be that they might be better for us? I'm just spitballing here. I'm not saying this is what I think will happen or not, but I'm just laying out the possibilities. And I would like to have a conversation about this with other people. I want to see if I can get a lawyer on to discuss this a little bit further. I tried to see if I can get a lawyer to come on, but I wasn't responded to. But what do you think? Is this good? Is this bad? Are you kind of in the middle? Let me know. But this was a story that a lot of people, this can affect everybody in this state. And so I feel like this is a story that needs to be talked about more, because this really is about the future of our lawyers and attorneys that may end up having to defend us one day. If not now, then down the line. And so the Supreme Court already ruled it. So starting on October 1st, they do not have to be ABA accredited. They'll have to come from an ABA accredited university. So keep watching, y'all. All right, guys, go ahead and like the stream. This is going to be interesting. I'm just like, what? Oh boy. All right. Let me check on the kick side. Man. All right, we're good on the kick side. All right. Let's check to see if we have any Rumble rants. All right, no Rumble rants right now, though I did see a funny comment that I actually want to I do want to get into. All right. Let me see. Creative Experiment says, get your accreditation at Bob's Bar Exam Shack. It's right next to the Cracker Barrel. Oh Lord, I love y'all. Let me see. Let's continue on. Let me see. Lady Alex says, I was not able to take my license exam if I graduated from an unaccredited nursing school. I mean, I would want my nurse to be, from an accredited school. You know what I mean? I would want my surgeon or my physician, my cardiologist, my nephrologist, my ophthalmologist to be board certified. It just makes you more comfortable. Let me see. Oh my gosh. Kurt Voss says, you're the best nurse I know. Those tender must. What? What's going on here? Oh my gosh. Creative Experiment says, don't get a lawyer from Florida. Oh no. John Morgan, the richest lawyer in the United States, is based in Florida. Morgan and Morgan. Oh my goodness. Let me see here. Damn, Kurt, you getting a little close. All right. Adam says it's a legal system, not a justice system. Law professor. Ooh, that's true. That's very true. All right. Oh yeah, that's right. Sean to interview Jen from Revolutionary Change. I forgot she went to law school. I'm gonna send her that article and see what she says. I forgot Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate that. Let me see. God is Good says a Native of America originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to descendants of Europeans born in America. Interesting. Adam Zayel says Bar's certified racist ICE lawyer James Rodden caught praising the big H. Not the big H. Oh my goodness. And thank you for this super sticker, Adam. Appreciate it. Thank you for this, Roger. He says one of my CBI amendment ideas is for the allowance of public funds to be used for poor and working class defendants to secure law firms of their choice to represent them to even the odds against the government when the government decides that it is much easier to go after us than the high-powered rich people. That's an interesting idea. I can't think of anything better at the moment, but it sounds like a good idea. Thank you very much for that. All right. Aurora says, speaking of states in the Deep South, have you heard of the Brian McGinnis Green Party's Senate campaign? No, I have not. But that's very interesting, though. I don't think I know who Brian McGinnis is. That name, like the last name sounds familiar, but I don't know. I need to look into it, though. But thank you very much for that. All right. Oh, and I wanted to get to this one on Rumble. Dang it. I saw this really funny comment that I really wanted to share. Let me see if I can find it. It might be way up higher, but it was funny. I'm trying to laugh today, y'all. I am trying to laugh because guess what? The world is going to hell in the handbasket. And I'm trying to at least make us, laugh a little bit. This one from a longtime listener says, what do you call 50 lawyers at the bottom of a lake? I don't know, longtime listener. What do you call them? Please let me know. I can't wait for that answer, too. I'm probably going to bust out laughing for that one. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys. Let's get into the final segment that we're going to be covering. And I want to get into this, but please go ahead and like the stream. So the final segment we're going to get into has to do with real estate. That one's going to be a good one. And so we're going to be getting into this. Make sure I take that down. Alrighty, guys. All right. So we're going to be getting into a home crisis. Foreclosures on the up and up. Let's get into this, guys. Crisis. Woo! The free state of Florida? That's funny. All right. What do you do when you are facing foreclosure and you're about to lose your home? Many people are faced with that on a daily basis, but it feels like more and more people, especially Floridians, are facing that even more. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over why this is happening. Why is there a uptick in foreclosures within the state of Florida? And also, one of the things I want to get into is what are the reasonings for these foreclosures? Like, what is really behind this foreclosure crisis happening? And what can we do really to combat this? Is there anything we can do to combat this? So let's get into this story. I want to share this really quick, and then we'll get into the rest of this. Because, guys, if you own a home, or if you're trying to own a home, you might want to pay attention to this story. We'll show you why. All right. So Tampa is the epicenter. Let's get into it.
Foreclosure rates are on the rise across the country, particularly here in Florida. According to real estate experts, the Sunshine State leads the U.S. Lenders in Florida started the foreclosure process on 1 in every 1,800 homes last month. And Tampa has seen the highest rate in the country. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer shows us what experts think is driving these higher than normal numbers.
From 2020 to about 2023, home prices soared across Tampa Bay. Some families who bought their homes back then are now facing a harsh reality.
They would have to sell at essentially the same price they bought for because there has been a declining market. So they would need to bring roughly $10,000 to the closing table in order to avoid a short sale.
St. Pete.
So we talked about this, within the last year about, and this makes sense that it's happening in Tampa because you have a lot of the corporations that were buying up homes in areas like Tampa and raising the prices of homes by buying up all these houses. And so now the housing bubble has risen. And because the housing bubble has risen, then a lot of people are not really able to afford their homes now. And now they're starting to go underwater, which is increasing a housing foreclosure crisis because of what the corporations were doing into buying up all these homes and making us basically a nation of permanent renters. Now, people who are going to foreclose in their homes, guess what? That's going to be homes that are going to be dirt cheap for corporations to be able to scoop up and now own in perpetuity, or at least until they don't see it profitable anymore. But now all those homes are going to get scooped up by big corporations, and they're going to artificially keep the rents of the homes high so then they can charge even more. And then that's going to artificially inflate the prices of homes. And who's going to end up suffering? Well, it's going to be a lot of the homeowners. Let's continue on.
Short sale.
St. Pete realtor Mia Annabelle with Smith & Associates explained what can happen next.
By the time we get that net sheet, they're negative. They can't sell, they can't afford the property.
And that can lead to foreclosure. Florida saw more foreclosures than any other state in October, according to Adam Data, a real estate analytics company. Tampa had the highest rate of all major cities, with 1 in every 1,373 housing units in foreclosure. Experts point to skyrocketing property taxes and insurance costs as major factors, but that's just the beginning.
It's really all prices and all costs associated with housing, whether it's HOA, whether it's interest on mortgage payments, whether it's interest payments. All of those costs are going up.
On top of that, daily expenses are up too. USF economist Michael Snipes says those added costs are often a big problem for retirees on a fixed income.
It's a huge investment. It's a huge source of spending for a lot of individuals. It's a huge part of their income. So any small change is going to be felt particularly acutely by individuals who might not have a whole lot of money.
Realtors say the best.
So what you're seeing is that the real economy, I'm not talking about what the stock market says and what these people on CNBC and Fox Business are saying. No. The real economy, what we see on a daily basis, when you look at your utility bill, whether it be Duke Energy, Florida Power and Light, OUC, whatever, when you go to the store, whether it be at Publix, Sedano's, Winn-Dixie, Target, Walmart, don't matter. Hell, El Presidente, look, the prices are all going up. And that affects what else? The cost of you being able to afford your home. And so now you have people defaulting on their homes, on their mortgages. And now, guess what? They are having to foreclose. And this is not fair to the American people. But hey, the shareholders got to get theirs, right? Right? Let's continue on.
Advice for families worried about foreclosure.
Have the conversation sooner than later. It's not going to go away. You know, sometimes we get called in and it's to a point where the bank has already started the process, and that gets very tricky.
In other words, don't wait until it's too late. In Tampa, Aaron Mesmer, Fox 13 News.
And a spokesperson for Adam Data told Fox 13 that Tampa's foreclosure increase also reflected a temporary spike caused by a backlog of records in Hillsborough County. We're told the rate is expected to normalize this month.
So basically, it's stagflation or scamflation, because people are being scammed like crazy within the state. And it is happening all over Florida. So let's get into the article just to get a little bit more detailed here, because you need to know, especially if you are in the state of Florida. So this is out of Realtor.com. It said Florida had the most foreclosures in the U.S. in 2025 as rates continue to rise across the nation. Says foreclosures continued to rise last year, with Florida leading the nation, although mortgage defaults remain fairly low relative to historic levels. In 2025, foreclosure filings were reported on 367,460 U.S. properties, up 14% from 2024, but still 25% below 2019 before pandemic disruptions altered the dynamics of the housing market, according to year-end data from the real estate analysis firm Adam. Florida had the highest foreclosure rate of any state last year, with foreclosure filings on 0.44% of residential properties in the Sunshine State. Following were Delaware at 4.42%, South Carolina at 0.41%, and Illinois 0.40% respectively. So it continues on. It says Florida leads the nation in filings as homeowners there face heightened affordability pressures from rising insurance premiums, property taxes, and overall ownership costs. So also the insurance premiums is also another big thing, because the insurance premiums are going up because we live in an area that's susceptible to really bad weather. I mean, we literally have a hurricane season. Our hurricane season starts from June 1st all the way to November 1st. And so in that period, really in that around 6-month period, we are, threatened with hurricanes that could rock the state. And so because insurance companies have, this risk assessment, and so if it's considered to be risky to live here, that means they're going to increase your rates. The problem is that people can't afford that. So we literally have a state homeowners insurance company, a state-owned homeowners insurance company here in Florida that is the last resort for homeowners if they can't get a private homeowners insurance from a private company. And even then, there's so many people who are saying, you know what, I'm not even going to insure my home. And we have people doing this left and right now because it is too expensive, because they cannot afford it. And of course, we have property taxes now. People like Ron DeSantis are saying that we should completely get rid of property taxes, but that's also going to put the burden of taxes on people who are not renters. I'm sorry, that are not homeowners. So people like myself that are renters, the property taxes are, instead of not having property tax, then it's going to go up on us when it comes to buying goods and services. The report actually talked about increasing our taxes. I think our taxes are at either 6.5% or I think it was 7%. It's going to go up to 9%. And so we're going to have a higher tax, which is going to be affecting people who don't own homes, on top of other taxes as well. But the problem is that people are suffering, and this is what's driving up the foreclosure rates. And my biggest fear with the driving up of foreclosure rates is foreclosed homes usually sell for cheap. And who has the cash flow, the capital to be able to just drop, thousands of dollars on a foreclosed home and scoop it up like they're at the Monopoly board? Corporations. So therefore, now there's going to be more homes that are going to be in the hands of big corporations. And then what are they going to do? They're going to rent it out back to us, and then we're going to become a nation of permanent renters. Meanwhile, places like China, their home ownership rate is in the 90s. Meanwhile, our home ownership rate is falling like a rock. And so it's sad because we could have greater home ownership here, but because of this system, it's not conducive for people to own homes because the corporations have to get theirs. Let's continue on. So it talks about foreclosure rates by state. Look at wow. Look here. So Florida, is that Illinois? I think it is. Yeah, I think that's Illinois, Florida, South Carolina, New Jersey, of course, Delaware, Nevada. These are very high, right? As far as foreclosure rates. Hell, not even New York is in the top 5. Well, they might. No, I don't think Florida, New York's not even in the top 5. It's crazy. It says foreclosure activity increased in 2025, reflecting continued normalization of the housing market following several years of historically low levels. While filings, starts, and repossessions all rose compared to 2024, foreclosure activity remains well below pre-pandemic norms and a fraction of what we saw during the last housing crisis. Barbara says that current uptick of foreclosures is due to market recalibration than widespread homeowner distress, with strong equity positions and more disciplined lending continue to limit risk. But my question is like, also, isn't that partially because a bunch of people probably lost their homes trickling over the last few years? So it didn't see really a spike, but a lot of those people who lost homes aren't getting homes back. And so the population of people who own homes is actually smaller now. So yeah, there's an uptick, but it doesn't feel that bad because there's not as big of an amount of people that have homes now. Like, for instance, the 2008 crisis really wiped out a lot of homeowners. Like, what if the 2008 crisis didn't happen? How many homeowners would we have in this country now? It's crazy, man. So, you see here. Foreclosure filings jumped 57% in December. The annual report also includes a new data for December 2025 showing that there were 44,990 U.S. properties with foreclosure filings last month, up 26% from the previous month and 57% higher than a year ago. States with the worst foreclosure rates in December 2025 were New Jersey, right? South Carolina, and Maryland. So at the metro level, among cities with a population of 1 million or more, Baltimore led this nation for foreclosure rate last month, followed by Cleveland and Philadelphia. San Jose, California had the lowest foreclosure rate among any large metro in December, followed by Milwaukee and Kansas City. So you have these states that are increasing. I'm gonna be honest with you. These states also have very large Black populations. I'm just saying. And so I think that we should also take that into consideration. Here's something I saw that I would like to also take a look at. This came out in 2021. So foreclosures are fueling America's racial wealth gap. Homeownership doesn't pay off equally for all. New resource explains why. It says the wealth gap is dire based on data from the Fed's 2019 survey of consumer finances. Median wealth for white families nearing retirement was $315,000, nearly triple that of Hispanic families and 6 times that of Black families. Racial disparities in average wealth are even greater. Take a look at this graph. So here's white, so in the trillions of dollars, right? And then you have Hispanic, Black, and other. So Black is this like grayish green line, this thin grayish green line. Hispanic is the more beige line, and then in the more magenta line, you have other, right? It says more than half of the median wealth gap between Black and white people at retirement age can be attributed to racial differences in housing wealth based on data from the panel study of income dynamics. Per the latest census figures, 75% of non-Hispanic white people own homes, compared to 45% of Black people and 50% of Latinos and 60% of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And crucially, white homeowners enjoy more robust growth in property values than homeowners of color on average, and therefore end up with a substantially larger return on investment. So, of course, when we talk about foreclosure rates are definitely going to be higher among Black and brown people within the state. So who's also probably bearing the brunt of this foreclosure rate right now, this foreclosure hike, is really probably people who are Black and brown. And it goes without saying that this is also a part of this system as well, because when it comes to the unemployment rate is actually higher among Black Americans. I think Black people are I think our unemployment rate is somewhere near 7% among Black people, whereas I think it's like 4.3% among Americans overall, but I think it's around 7%, maybe 7.2, 7.3% among Black people. But that just goes to show how the racial disparities affect even when it comes to foreclosures. And it talks about the 2008 crisis, and there's an actual there's also an article out of Jacobin. That article in Jacobin actually talks about how Obama caused the Black wealth to tank. And so I think that is also indicative of what exactly is going on within the country too, because It shouldn't have happened, but it did. Let's look at here. Examining virtually all urban residential foreclosures from 2005 to 2009, Hall and co-authors find that mostly Black and Latino neighborhoods lost homes at rates approximately 3 times higher than white areas, with ethnically mixed communities also deeply affected. They estimate that the typical neighborhood experienced 4.5 foreclosures per 100 homes during this crisis, but the figure rises to 8.1 and 6.2 homes in predominantly Black and Latino areas, respectively, while white neighborhoods lost only 2.3 homes on average. As an avalanche of foreclosures buried minority and racially mixed communities, their white population shrank and Black and Latino populations swelled. Researchers found that white households were significantly more likely to leave areas with high foreclosure rates, while Black and Latino families entered these neighborhoods out of necessity or to seek newly affordable housing options. Not only were white households less likely to be foreclosed on, but they were also among the first to leave neighborhoods where foreclosures were high, particularly those with racially diverse residents. So they're saying that it's up higher, but it's not so bad. Tell that to people who lost their home, man. Like, why are people losing their home? And also, if you paid off your home, you shouldn't be foreclosed on. What about the people who may be elderly, right? What about them? What about the people who, own their home outright? I don't know, man. It sucks because the people who own their homes outright, if you lose your home, like, that's just wrong to me. Like, you paid it off. And yes, this has happened in my family. So there is definitely this is something that I think we should be paying close attention to. Now, my question is this higher foreclosure rate within Florida, is this going to be, are we seeing signs of a deeper, more robust collapse happening? Because it feels like we're starting to get to that. And here's what I mean. I found out recently that there's going to be a huge influx of auto parts stores that are going to be opening up. And you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, auto parts stores opening up? Like, what does that have to do with the economy? Think about it. Instead of purchasing brand new cars, when, let's say you got your car up to 100,000 miles and you're like, okay, I need to trade it in or I need to sell it and I need something else. People are opting out of getting another car and they're saying, you know what? I'm just going to keep the one I have and I'm just going to fix it. Because instead of spending all that money to buy a completely new car, they're just going to spend less money and do repairs on the car they have. So this is causing an influx in sales when it comes to auto parts stores. You have Advanced Auto Parts, you have Napa Auto, you have AutoZone. And so now these guys they're growing because people aren't buying cars like they used to. Also factor in, yes, some of these, auto parts stores are affected by the tariffs, but would you rather pay tariffs on an auto part or have to pay tariffs, additional higher prices on a full car versus a part for a car? So it just goes to show that that's also indicative of the economy that we're in, is that people now are more likely to, instead of buying a new car, just trying to fix whatever they have instead. But it's the same thing with housing costs, right? Now we're starting to see a lot of, people that are losing housing. And so there's things that you need to look at, like defaults on credit cards, people becoming defaulting or delinquent on their car payments. I'm actually also curious about late payments on car insurance as well. And also if it's reported how many people are either late or delinquent on their rent or mortgage. Because these are also big indicators of possibly a looming big fallout as we speak, because it's becoming deeper and deeper as we progress forward in 2026. I feel like a deeper recession is about to hit. And it's like the longer we go without it, I think the harder it's going to hit. Just like what Professor Richard Wolff says, that a recession within capitalism, within a capitalist system like this, they typically comes around every 4 to 7 years. The last really deep recession we had was during the pandemic. That was 2020. I mean, if you want to take from 2020 to 2022, if you want to measure it from that way, so from the end of 2022, we're now in 2026. So now by the time we hit 2027, we're at that 4 to 7 year mark. And so if this continues, this trend continues, hold on to your hats, y'all. It's about to get bad. And so I think this is why I am so adamant about doing mutual aid. Get out there and help your neighbors. Try to do as much as you possibly can. Hey, if you know somebody that's having issues with their home or like affordability, right? Do you know how to do plumbing? Can you help a family that has plumbing issues? Right? Do you know how to cut grass? Is there any way you can just cut people's grass for them? I know Rome cuts people's grass for them. Hey, if you need to raise money for the gas, for fuel, let's do a little crowd fund, raise money for gas for the fuel for you to be able to cut somebody else's yard, for free as mutual aid. Go ahead and do it. But the thing is like we're going to need each other even more now than we did then. I think that's what's going to be really important. In Florida, and you also got to remember, we're a state that does not have state income tax. And so can you imagine if we had a state income tax, how many people will be defaulting even more within our state? So it just goes without saying, check in on your loved ones, no matter if they have a home or not, because a lot of people aren't doing okay. And I think it's important that we try to help our fellow neighbors and fellow workers, because it's getting even worse. And the answers are out there, right? We really have to just come together and do the best we can for ourselves. So stay tuned. I don't want to see people go through anything, but I feel like it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Hang on. All right, guys. So thank you very much. Give a like to the stream. Let me check to see we have any gifted subs, we're good on that. All right. And we're good on the Rumble side. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into the chats. All right. All right. Thank you very much for this, Roger. He says, in the coming months, we'll need as many high-powered attorneys as we can get our hands on. This is the perfect opportunity. Why? Because before October 7th, thank you very much for this. This is going to defend some poor black guy who's probably guilty anyway. Get the NGAs off the S booty as booty Zio sniffing politicians passing unconstitutional law. I was trying to be serious, Roger. Damn it. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you very much for that. He continues. Get the NGAs off the S booty Zio sniffing politicians passing unconstitutional laws. Poor will need repping. Now I'm all good with getting rid of property tax as long as we can find a new way to finance public schools, parks, recreations, and fire department. He said booty. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm sorry. Oh, Lord. Roger, what am I going to do with you? Let me see. All right. Looks like thank you so very much to Sean giving me another gifted sub on the Kick Chat. Thank you so very much. Appreciate that. Let's get into the rest of the chat. I'm sorry, I'm still on Roger's comment. All right, so let's get into this. This is a good point. Jacqueline says, there's nothing stopping Luigi from running for office while in jail. Then Eugene Debs run for U.S. president while he was in prison back in the 20s or 30s. I think he was already running I think he was running before he got put into jail. But Luigi might be able to. I don't know what the law stipulates regarding that. But that would be interesting if he ran for office while behind bars. That'd be crazy. That was wow. Creative Experiment says Florida is ground zero for the housing market crash. Feels like we're always ground zero for something, man. Italian Stallion. What are these names? I love it. I love my audience. ICE has started hitting the second two. Almost said Italian Stallion has started hitting the second two. I'm sorry. Oh Lord. See, Edward says corporations make a killing on buying foreclosure homes because they can make profits off the rents for new tenants. Absolutely. That is sad. And he says also, yes, the construction is bad quality. Yeah. Nico done reposted the stream. Thank you so very much, Nico. All right. Awesome sauce. Appreciate it, man. Good to see you. Let me see. Okay, Jacqueline says, if someone passes the bar exam in Florida but moves to New York, would they have to pass another bar exam in New York to practice law in New York? And is there a fee to sit these bar exams? So from what I understand is if you pass the bar exam, it might. I don't know. Actually, I would need to ask a lawyer that. But I feel like you would be accepted as a. I think you would be accepted to practice law if you went through a ABA accredited school in states like New York. You will be able to practice law as long as you pass their bar exam, because state law is, it varies from state to state. So you will probably still have to pass their bar. But even still, if you pass the bar, if as long as you went through a ABA accredited school, then you'd be able to, all you have to do is just take the bar, and once you pass the bar, then you're able to practice law. But I don't know how much it is. This is why I would like to have a lawyer on to talk about this, but I would imagine like having to take the bar exam, I think it's somewhere in like 225, something like that. I know it costs a decent amount of money. Now, $225 is a lot of money for me. Just letting y'all know. So some people be like, "Oh, it's only no," and ain't no only in $225. No, that's expensive, y'all. Anyways, but yeah, it might be more. I'm going off the top of my head here. Let me see. Let me see. Aura Terror Bird says, repair, don't replace. That's how I like it. Mostly, it'd be nice if there was a way to convert gas cars into electric ones. That would be kind of cool. I actually would like that. I think that'd be cool. Oh no! Marco says, I just got laid off today. What? Ah, dude, I'm so sorry. Damn. I'm very sorry, Marco. I'm sitting here trying to get a job, and Marco's just got laid off. It is terrible. It's going for a lot of people. Yeah. Hey, Bryce, good to see you. Yeah. Let's give some hearts in the chat for Marco, man. That sucks, man. We're behind you, man. Sean says, I'm not sure why it doesn't let me sub on Kick. I'm not sure. These sites are weird. But thank you very much for the gifted sub, Sean. Appreciate it. All right, guys. So let me head on out. I want to make sure that I got this too, because I'm gonna be making sure to attend this. Let me see. I'm gonna make sure I get this. So I know that on this, I think this Saturday, this Saturday on the 24th at this Saturday the 24th at 11 a.m. Savvy Sabs is going to be having a mutual aid workshop. I'm trying to see if I can find it. I might have to and so I should be attending that. Let me see. She should have it up. Her notice. I don't see it. She might show it tonight. But guys, she's having a whatchamacallit, a mutual aid workshop this Saturday at 11 a.m. And so I'll be there to help. So excuse me, so that people can learn more about how to do mutual aid. Because I think that's very important. And so, on her Substack, I think she will be sending out the link via newsletter. But I think it's important that we learn how to do mutual aid and help each other out. Even if you already do, it's good to have people there for support and also offer some suggestions too. I think that's important too. And so make sure to support people. And if you're already doing mutual aid, great. If you're on Twitter or Blue Sky or Instagram and you're doing mutual aid, don't just tag me and tell me you did mutual aid. I want you to show the mutual aid you're doing. The reason why is because I want people to be encouraged to do the same thing. Be a community influencer. I know it sounds kind of weird, but influence people to do more for their community, right? And it's not that you're showing off and saying, oh, look at me, look at what I'm doing. It's, hey, I'm doing this, you can do it too, and here's how we can get started. Here's how you can get started. So I would like for people to do that, right? Thank you for this. Roger, he says, hey, did you read the first super chat? I think I did. Hang on. Unless I missed it. Let me see. This is the first one I read in the coming months. With many high-powered attorneys as we can get our hands on. Is that the first one you were talking about, Roger? Because that's the only. Oh, wait. Oh, this one. I didn't see this one. I'm sorry. It says, just remember, JB, that the government is getting ready to come after us for exercising our First Amendment rights, all to protect the Zio. I got to be careful what I say. But yes. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You got a point there. And then thank you very much for this. It says, you and Sab warn us about Florida housing market. Yeah, it's getting bad out here, man. Mary Poppins says electric cars can use more fossil fuels than gas cars. This is why I'm a big fan of mass public transit. We need to have more of that instead of just cars. You know what I mean? Cars is more of an individualistic band-aid. I think we should have more mass public transit, high-speed rail, things like that. And then I'm very sorry to your husband, Mary. This is my husband laid off on Christmas too, turned 50 and got the boot when the company restructures. Wow. I'm so sorry. Man, everybody's dealing with it, man. It's crazy. And right at the end of the fourth quarter, so the fourth quarter numbers don't look so bad, right? All right, guys. So thank you very much for that. One of the things I want to do before we head out is I want to add some levity. There's something that I've been wanting to do because I think it's important that we share. Let me see. That we share, what we can to bring joy to people's lives. Hang on, let me make sure. No, wait. What is that? That is not what I wanted. I hate when you have a link and then you click on it and then it. What the heck happened? Okay. I hate when you have a link and you click on it and then it doesn't go to the link that. Why is it doing this? Hang on. I am literally logged in and it's like. Is my computer freezing? Am I freezing? The hell? Am I freezing up, guys? I don't know. My computer is freezing up a little bit. Let me take a couple of these tabs down. All right. So I'll take that down too. I think I'm okay. All right. For some reason, I don't know why, but it's like every single time I'm clicking on the link that I let me see something. I'm not frozen? Okay. Thank you. No, see, I don't know what the heck is going on with Instagram. Instagram is acting stupid. It's crazy how I have this. I really wanted to do this. It's like, what the fuck? It's like not even going to the it's not even going to the actual link that I posted. Like I shared the link to myself so that I can have it. I hate that, man. Maybe that was why. I was probably logged out. That might have been why. Okay, let me see something. All right, let's. No, it's. All right, you know what? Meta is trash. Meta is trash. Let me see if I can get it on my my phone. I hate this. I really wanted to do this because I thought it was hilarious, but unfortunately, no, that's not what I want. Meta and Twitter have been acting up like crazy lately. Is it just me? Like, is it just me? Because it feels like I know I'm not going crazy here. And the crazy part is it's not showing up on, like, I'll have something that I send to myself on Twitter, a link, and then the link doesn't show up at all. This damn app. You know what? I'm tired of this. All right. I'm sorry, guys. I really wanted to share with you guys this, but for some reason the link is not working. These websites are trash. And they were hilarious too. And I wanted to go back and watch them myself. If I ever get them again, guys, I will. But I wanted you guys to laugh on your way out. But guys, I have to get going. But look, I appreciate you guys tuning in today. It was a very good show. Thank you so much to Joey Peltier for coming in and joining the show with me today to talk about what's going on when it comes to Native Americans. And guys, it is going to be an interesting year nonetheless, especially as we continue on with this administration. And of course, it's a midterm election year too. So you're going to see people who are on the Democratic side that are going to be saying the right things. And yeah, don't fall for it. Because when it comes to a lot of the things that the Republican Party does, the Democrats are signing on to. So don't fall for it. And the most important thing we can do is mutual aid and help out each other. So please continue to help out each other as much as you possibly can and be the neighbor that you would want to be. So thank you very much to everybody for joining in for this. I appreciate every single one of you. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And I will catch you all in the next one. And forehead kisses. And I love you for being just who you are. Y'all have yourself a great day. Nighty-night. Thank you so much for watching. And I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here.